Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I've answered that question like 30 podcasts in a row now. So now, once again, it's time for me to ask you, no, friend, how are you doing?
Nobody's ever asked me that. I'm doing well. I've been able to watch my favorite sport, which is soccer, as we discussed on the earlier show yesterday. So it's a learning experience. What I don't, I'm starting, well, what I never understood about soccer is the offside rule, which is basically like if the defense doesn't run towards the goal, the offense can't. So it's like, well, why would the defense ever run towards the goal?
Well, if you have the ball, they can go. So
right.
Yes, there's the answer.
You learn some nuances of the thing, and it's like, how come only the goalie can touch the ball with his hands? What's up with that?
That's one of life's mysteries. I don't know the answer to that.
So I'm learning, and it's entertaining. I don't mind soccer when there's like stakes, when it's like global or national or continental, I guess you will. But that's me. I'm doing well. I've had some breakfast, which is always great. And, I'm expecting Phil Steele's magazine to hit my doorstep any day now. Like, seriously, today it's supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
So and I don't want to complain, but it's supposed to be 2-day because I ordered from the website. It's supposed to be FedEx 2-day. Everything, he said everything got shipped out last week, but because of the weekend and really my 2 days didn't start until like maybe Friday or Saturday. And so that's why it's going to be Tuesday. And yet it's still here a day earlier than it was supposed to be shipped out, like originally. So I can't really be too upset because it's here on the 22nd when they weren't even supposed to be shipped out until the 23rd.
So you can't really complain, but good on you for not letting that stop you from complaining. Right. That was good.
And I would never let something like that stand in my way from of complaining. So that's me. See, Tom, that's why you don't ask how I'm doing. You just follow the routine of the show, and then we can get into the show.
Lesson learned. Everyone's like, he's such a narcissist. He only talks about himself and how he's doing. He never asked Tony. This is why
Tom doesn't ask me about me. So, Tom, let's talk about today's show, which is something where we're going to get to the Big Ten today, which is why, Tom, you are in the big house, and I am at the Rock.
Correct. Alcatraz.
So, I am in Bloomington. You are in Ann Arbor, which will be the stage for many fantastic moments this season. So today's show is basically 10 things we're looking forward to seeing in the Big Ten this year. 5 apiece. We'll see if we have some overlap. If we do, one or the other of us will have to acquiesce and give up and roll over on our backs to expose our bellies, basically. I will let you go first, though. If you're like, what are you looking forward to seeing from the Big Ten this year, Tom?
Sure. I'm going to go with the fact that so many teams have so many guys back because of the super senior rule. Going through the season preview series that I'm doing in the Morning Scoop, it's just like, it seems like everybody has 4 offensive linemen back and a starting quarterback back and a starting running back and like 2 or 3 starting wide receivers and like 2 or 3 defensive linemen and like 3 linebackers and like 3 of the defensive backs. Like everyone has like everyone back this year. Ohio State is the one team that has lost a lot from last year. New quarterback, new running back. I mean, you can go through the list. There's a bunch of new spots on that Ohio State team. I'm super interested to see because it feels like every year we kind of go in with the default answer of, well, Ohio State's infinitely more talented than everyone else in the league. So they're going to win the Big Ten. It's just a question of whether they slip up once or twice and then they miss the college football playoff, not whether they're going to win the Big Ten. I am super interested to see, like, is this the year that someone catches Ohio State? I don't even know who. Is it Indiana? Is it Iowa? Is it Wisconsin? Like, all these teams have a bunch of talent back. Is this the year that someone actually catches Ohio State and, someone else wins the Big Ten or makes, at least makes that Big Ten championship game, like, really dramatic down to the wire?
It is. It's interesting. I was looking at Iowa, and it's like, wow, they've got their entire secondary back. They've got, all Big Ten running back. They got their starting quarterback back, and it's like, am I looking forward to Iowa? am I really looking forward to seeing what Iowa can do? Because it's going to be Iowa. It's solid on defense, maybe a little more solid this year. And then, 26 points per game on offense. That is enough to win. And how can you look forward to something? Although I'd say, how can you look forward to something that is what you always get? But, we look forward to our favorite pizza. We look forward to, whatever. It's when you know what you're going to get, there's something to look forward to there. But you're right. There's a lot of experience returning that could create some issues. For me, some of that experience that I'm looking forward to is in West Lafayette with Purdue's passing game. Even though they lose Rondale Moore, I want to see David Bell again. I want to see Milton Wright, TJ Sheffield, who's like all three of those guys were on the Ohio State recruiting radar way back when. Bell had offer, Milton Wright had an offer. I don't know that if TJ Sheffield ever got to that point. Even Xander Horvath, the 6'3", 230-pound Mike Allstott 2.0, had 30 catches last year. So there's a lot to like with what they do in the passing game. David Bell, nearly averaging 100 yards receiving in his career over 2 seasons. I would expect that to continue this year. I don't know who's going to be throwing them the ball. They've returned both of their starting quarterbacks who are essentially the same. They produce about the same, even though they do different things. And I wrote about my Big Ten ratings are going on right now. Ever since Jeff Brom has been there, he's never had just one quarterback make it through the season. It's always, we could go each year and you remember the different guys. They've had 2 starting quarterbacks, and I'm sure they will again this year. The good news is there's not really a drop-off from either guy, even though for one reason or the other, like one guy wins and one guy loses. I don't know why that is when they do the same thing, but I'm looking forward to seeing some Purdue offense this year. And, David Bell, again, I'm looking forward to watching him.
Yeah, and I'm going to just slide that right into my next one, which is like there could be a legitimate race in the Big Ten West this year. A real dramatic race because it's Iowa looks like Iowa. It just looks like every Iowa team ever, and this might be the good version of Iowa and not the version of Iowa. Wisconsin looks like Wisconsin, and it's like they could be the good version of Wisconsin this year. Minnesota has a ton of veteran talent back. I don't know. They took a step back last year. Can they take that next step forward again? Maybe. Purdue, you just made the case for Purdue right there. Nebraska, is this the year Nebraska can maybe take that next step from 5-7, 6-6 to an 8-4 team? This could be the year you have a pretty good West race, which it feels like we haven't really had that much. It's always kind of this team is going to win. This team's 10-2, and then there's a bunch of teams that are 8-4, and that's kind of it. And it's not very exciting, and it's not, not very interesting. This year could be interesting. I do think Northwestern's going to be down this year. They've lost basically everyone. Like last year, they had everyone back. This year, they're losing everyone. So, I think Northwestern probably takes a step back. Illinois is starting from scratch, so they're probably not in. Any of the other 5, you could tell me any of the other 5 finish in the top 3 in that division and within a game or 2 of the division championship, and I could see it. I can buy it. So that's interesting to me because it feels like we don't have a lot of divisional race drama, and it's usually by the second week of November, Ohio State's going to be the Big Ten championship game, and they're going to be playing this team. Well, next year, not so much. Next year, it's going to be a little more wide open out there.
That's why I've always liked the Big Ten West and the Big Ten East versus the legends and the leaders. You've got 2 completely different styles of divisions. In the East, you've got Ohio State and the other powers, Michigan and Penn State, trying to reach that level. In the West, it's completely wide open where you could have a different winner every single year. And maybe that becomes even more true if Bret Bielema can do something. And we'll talk about Bret Bielema in a little bit. Just don't you worry. But I wouldn't be totally shocked with anybody but say Illinois winning it. I don't expect Purdue's defense and they can't run the ball. In Northwestern, you mentioned they lost a lot of guys, but if they somehow came through and win it, I wouldn't be shocked. I would only be shocked really if Illinois were to somehow do that. And I don't think they will. I think it's going to be very tough because my next thing is the Badgers and their offense. Is this Jalen Berger, freshman running back last year, was played in 4 games. I think he carried the ball 15 times in each game. was in 3 of those games was somewhere between like 85 and 92 yards rushing per game. So he's a consistent guy learning the ropes. Now he is the guy. Graham Mertz is back. You've got receivers, Jake Ferguson, the tight end. We know about Danny Davis. The offensive line is there. They've got 8 returning starters on defense. I think maybe the thing that a lot of people are missing is Paul Christ is going to be calling plays this year. He gave it up last year, and it was not good. I think some of that was maybe because Jonathan Taylor wasn't there. Maybe losing him hurt, but Paul Christ is an offensive genius for what he does, and he's a good play caller, and so I think that's going to help. So I think the Badgers could be pretty decent this year. For the West, so much of it comes down to schedule, though, and what do the road games look like? What do the home games look like? Do you get the toughest teams at home, or do you have to go on the road? Because there's only so much talent differential between the teams to be able to win on the road consistently. So a lot of it is about what your schedule is. But I think we could see something from the Badgers, and they could get back to that running game. And if Graham Mertz is able to, if Graham Mertz can go 21 of 22 every day with 5 touchdowns like he did against Illinois in his debut, if he can play Illinois every week, I'm thinking this Wisconsin team is going to be pretty good.
There's a lot of it that comes down to, and this is like the most super reductive thing that everyone does, is how good does the quarterback play? That's how good the team's going to be. It's like, well, that's probably a little base level compared to how complicated this really is. But like for Iowa and for Wisconsin, when I was talking to their beat writers about what's the season going to look like, it came down to a lot to, so what's Spencer Petras look like? What does Graham Mertz look like? I mean, Graham Mertz just chased off Jack Cohn, who is a pretty good quarterback, who is going to be starting at Notre Dame this year. Like that's pretty good. Like if you were beating out a guy who's going to go start for Notre Dame, that's pretty good. Graham Mertz is a quarterback Ohio State really wanted coming out of high school. The ceiling is there. I mean, there is a lot that's going to be really interesting to watch there, because I think Wisconsin and Iowa could be, there's Iowa, and when I say there's Iowa, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like that is, exactly the team I'm talking about. And then there's like Iowa minus, where it's just like, yeah, they're just down this year, and instead of going 8-4, they go 7-5 or 6-6. And then there's Iowa plus, and that's the year that they go to the Big Ten championship game. Maybe they go to the Rose Bowl. They're not a national championship team, but they're like an 11-1 kind of team. This could be an Iowa plus kind of year. This could also be a Wisconsin plus kind of year. And Wisconsin is one of those teams where they too have that kind of like hard ceiling, where it's just like they're so good at what they do. When everything's working well, they go 11-1. They go to the Rose Bowl, but they don't quite have the talent to break through that glass ceiling to that next level. This is about as close as they get to being the like Wisconsin plus or Wisconsin plus kind of level team. So maybe if everything goes right, this is a Wisconsin team that can go 12-0 in the regular season. I mean, they have Notre Dame non-conference. That's not going to be easy. And, you mentioned the schedules. The biggest thing I look for across division and in this division is who has Ohio State. Well, this year it's Minnesota and Purdue and Nebraska. So neither Iowa nor Wisconsin has Ohio State. That is one big step towards a 12-0 regular season for both of those teams.
Badgers have to play. They host Michigan and they go to Rutgers. So that should be 2-0 right there. Notre Dame is in Chicago. Their road games at Illinois, if we're not counting the Chicago game, which against Notre Dame we probably should call that a road game, at Illinois, at Purdue, at Rutgers, at Minnesota, all winnable. And you assume all of the home games are winnable as well. So that's certainly one to watch. What do you got next, Tom?
All right, you mentioned Michigan. Let's do Jim Harbaugh's last stand. Like, I mean, this could be
so sad.
This is as now or never as it ever gets, because they restructured his contract. He was supposed to be getting $8 million. No, he was making $8 million a year. They restructured his contract, so he's making $4 million a year with a $4 million buyout. So functionally, firing him at the beginning of the season and firing him at the end of the season would cost exactly the same thing. There's no additional anything. So this is about as now or never as it gets for a coach, where he's changed his coordinators. He's taken a big pay cut to try and make it. And it's like, so this is the last stand. He's holed up in the Alamo, however you want to describe it. And, if it's a now or never season, there is a lot when you look at that team that points to, oh, never, it might just be never. Like this might just be never for him, because you have some of the same concerns on defense that you've had for a million years. You have the same concerns at quarterback that you've had for a million years. They lost some guys on, they lost some skill guys. They lost some linemen. I mean, it's just the interior of the defensive line is still a question mark. Like there's just a lot that's just like, this might just not happen. And, if they lose to Michigan State this year, like where does that go from there? Like this could spiral in a way that basically never seen a Michigan season spiral before. I mean, it could be incredibly bad. There's talent there. Like they could, if everything breaks right, do they go 9-3 and stay within 10 points of Ohio? They beat Michigan State and they stay within 10 or 14 points of Ohio State. And is that enough to get them another year? Maybe. But that seems like about the best case scenario. And looking at it just like objectively, it just seems like it's like 6-6 or 7-5. And if you lose a few of those early games and you lose to Michigan State and you're, whatever, 4-3 at that point, or 3-4 or whatever, and then it's very clearly like, this is just like, he's walking the green mile now. Like what does that look like at the end of the year? So I am really interested to see what that looks like. And then if it does all fall apart, how many Ohio State fans can fit inside Michigan Stadium for that game at the end of the year? We have been there for a bunch of games recently where it's like 35-40% Ohio State fans, and it's real loud in there. Like if Michigan has really fallen apart, if Michigan comes into that game 5-6 and Ohio State's unbeaten or 10-1 going into that game, how many Ohio State fans go to that Michigan game? Because tickets are going to be cheap. And I mean, we have seen a lot in that series over recent years. I have never seen a majority of Ohio State fans in that stadium for that game. I think there is a way that happens this year. And I mean, it will be remarkable if nothing else.
You're saying that, and I'm thinking, my mind immediately went to like, going to be 70% Ohio State fans? And it's like, well, maybe not, but boy, you could see, just imagine seeing more red than blue in there. That would be something that would be used in recruiting. Michigan would try to erase it from history. Like, I don't know how they would do it. They would be like, you can't take photos of our stadium. That's our copyright. That's our trademark. We're going to have to confiscate all of your film. And then you'd have to explain to them, well, actually there's no film anymore. It's all on a card. It's digital. And we've already uploaded it to the cloud. And then they would like, get that cloud down and give me back. So that's the Michigan, Jim Harbaugh's last stand. I also have something I'm looking forward to for Michigan. And if you guys are wondering, like, why aren't you guys talking about Ohio State? This is just things we're looking forward to that aren't Ohio State based. I'm just looking forward to Michigan's 10-game Power 5 schedule. They play two MAC teams in Western Michigan and Northern Illinois, but week 2 they host Washington. That's going to be fascinating to me. That's where immediately we'll get an idea for the demeanor, the capabilities of, and it's not like Washington is some super team. They're like maybe like Michigan. But basically, like, is Michigan good enough to beat themselves? I don't know, but we'll find out that week. And then, Rutgers at home, they should win that. But what if it's really hard? And it was really hard last year for them. So that's going to be something to watch. Then at Wisconsin, they may get obliterated. Then at Nebraska, which is the following week, are they still reeling from that? And then you get the bye week, and then you host Northwestern. They should be fine there. But then that comes at Michigan State, which I know you've already put your pick in for the Spartans. I'm not there yet. I want to see a little bit of Michigan State. Not that it matters, because Michigan State beat Michigan last year, and the Spartans were horrific, and they did it in Ann Arbor. At Penn State should be a loss. That at Maryland game is one of my top 10, maybe most oddly fascinating games, because Maryland, if Talia Tagovailoa is healthy at that point, which we know he won't be, but if he is, like, Maryland could very well just throw the ball all over Michigan's secondary. with Raheem Jarrett and all of these different guys that they've got. And then, of course, hosting Ohio State at home. I hadn't even thought about the majority of Ohio State fans, but now I can totally see it. And if all goes as well as can be for Michigan, and like I don't see them winning at Wisconsin. I don't know that I see them winning at Penn State. Even if they were to beat Ohio State somehow, like that's 10-2, and that's I think that's like the best case scenario for them. And I don't know that that's actually all that realistic because you're giving them wins in every other game, which when was the last time Michigan didn't lose games they shouldn't?
Right. And that's why I said 9-3 with a 10-point loss to Ohio State. If they're 9-3 and they lose to Ohio State 42-31, 31-21, whatever, that's probably enough to keep him around for another year because it's like, oh, this is progress. We didn't lose by 400 points this year. And that probably gets you a Citrus Bowl again. And that's fine. Like that's not terrible. I think that's the best case scenario though. I mean, I think that's like the absolute ceiling for this team is about 9-3. And there's just so much that's, it doesn't take very much drop off for them to go to 9-3 to, well, okay, then they lost the Washington game because Washington, this is the second year of Jimmy Lake, I believe, in Washington. So typically you see that jump in the second year of a new coach, and this is a new coach, young, energetic, players seem to like him from all indications. That's typically the program you see take that next step. So if Washington and Michigan were kind of at the same basic level last year, well, if Washington takes another step forward, then maybe they jump over Michigan, and then all of a sudden the ceiling starts to get lower and lower and lower. That's intriguing to me. And then the other thing that's intriguing to me is you kind of just sort of glossed over a couple of those games. You glossed over the Rutgers game. You didn't gloss over the Maryland game. But next thing I had on my list is Rutgers and Maryland might actually be almost decent this year, maybe. Not great, not going to beat Ohio State, not going to go 9-3, but both could be solid 6-7 win teams this year. That would not surprise me at all. Maybe the ceiling's a touch higher for Maryland because the talent level is a little higher. I don't know if I believe in the in-game coaching as much as I believe at Rutgers, so maybe that kind of balances out a little bit. But those are, the Rutgers game. I wrote some very mean things about Rutgers 2 years ago when Ohio State visited there, and just what an enormous waste of time it was for everyone to try, to drive out there and watch this game where Ohio State was beating up on basically a mid-level OCC Cardinal Division team, just garbage. They're better. The talent level's better. Schiano has gotten them back to the point where it's like, okay, this is no longer a complete embarrassment to all of college football. It's fine. You have these teams that are now fine. Now, maybe there's not an easy, there's not a gimme in the Big Ten East this year. If, second year of Mel Tucker, you got a, better Rutgers team, talent level's a little better at Maryland. Now you don't have the just automatically Sharpie in the W for every other team in the division when they're playing Maryland, when they're playing Rutgers, when they're playing, Indiana's better than they have been typically. Michigan State is better, is probably going to be better than they were last year, probably. There is not an automatic W for most teams outside of Ohio State in that division. Ohio State can probably still pencil in some of those as wins, but Indiana, Michigan, those teams, these are not just automatic gimmies anymore. More competitive football is a good thing. That is a good positive thing. It gives you more watchable football, more interesting football this fall. I'm actually looking forward to that. I am actually looking forward to seeing what does Maryland look like this fall? Because you and I have seen an interesting Maryland game in person a few years ago, but they have been few and far between throughout the years. This could actually be there's enough talent there, there's enough playmaking ability there that they can hang with these teams for a while and maybe beat one or two, and that's good. I would like a more competitive Big Ten from top to bottom, please.
It's funny because I actually had that as one of the ones I was thinking about. Maryland and Rutgers, getting better and just snapping somebody. And I don't think that Rutgers at Michigan game is you just write in the W now. I think maybe the Northwestern game might be easier than the Rutgers game for Michigan, and it's going to be fun to watch. And if you're asking me to take Michigan or Maryland right now, I'm taking taking Maryland on the road, because at that point, who knows just how devastated and completely depleted mentally Michigan will be. But again, like you said, it's really hard to put any faith in Loxley at all. But we'll see. And that's maybe I would feel a lot better if that game was like September 18th rather than November 20th for Maryland. Like if you get that earlier in the season, that would be much better. My next one, Tom. I'm just really looking forward to the first week of Big Ten games and all of the games that the Big Ten teams are playing. And first, I guess we should start with week 0, which is Nebraska at Illinois, which I think is a huge game for both programs, because it'll give us some information right away on Bret Bielema and his Illinois Fighting Illini. It's also a game that if Nebraska loses, like Scott Frost, poor guy, that's not a game it's just bad footing. It's just a bad way to start the season, is to lose to Illinois, the worst team in the division. You vying to win the division should not lose to the worst team in the division. That doesn't mean Nebraska can't then go, 7-1, 8-1 in the division or whatever. They won't, but that'd just be a bad way to start. Indiana at Iowa, week 1. That's 2 contenders, if you will. I don't know. Is it fair to call Indiana a contender? Certainly can call Iowa a Big Ten contender. West Virginia at Maryland is going to be fun. That might be a pretty high-scoring affair, and that's a old rivalry that has kind of gone away, and we'll see if we can come back. Western Michigan at Michigan. Who knows?
Another big rivalry game.
Certainly in-state, the recruiting is on the line in this one. Some in-state recruiting battles where this feels like maybe it's close for 3 quarters and then Michigan wins by 17 or something like that. Michigan State at Northwestern. I mean, somebody has to win.
It's football. I mean, this time of year, it's football sounds great. So why don't you slide that up to week -12 or so? We'll play that this Saturday. I will be extremely interested to watch.
Oregon State at Purdue, where it's the Big Ten's Purdue versus the Pac-12's Purdue. So that'll be fun. There could be some high-scoring stuff there. Penn State at Wisconsin that's a good way for Wisconsin to start. And if James Franklin can get a win there, that would be significant for him. That would be staking his claim. Like, no, we are one of the Big Ten's best. I don't know if there's an opening line on that one, but I'm guessing Wisconsin by 7, 8.5, something like that. Then, of course, Ohio State at Minnesota is an awesome way to start week 1 on Thursday night with unproven quarterbacks for the Buckeyes going into a semi-hostile environment. We'll see how hostile it is. I don't know how hostile any road environment can be for Ohio State that isn't in Happy Valley. Even at Nebraska, it's like it's all Nebraska fans, but they're really polite and they're really nice. So that's me. I'm just looking forward to all of the week 0, week 1, and it's sure they may not all be great games, but they're games, and we know we know that it's happening. We can get excited for it. And will I watch all of Michigan State and Northwestern? I don't know. Will I watch some of it? I don't know. But if it's the only thing on, yeah, sure, I might watch it.
Maybe.
I don't want to make any promises.
The line on the early line on the Wisconsin Penn State game is Wisconsin by 3.5. So
that seems really low to me.
That does seem a little low, doesn't it?
I would jump on that big time.
I mean, that's a you get 3 points for home field, so that's telling you that that's a push. Otherwise, like I don't know if I see that. Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I had the trip to Minnesota on my list as there are 2 Big Ten schools I've never seen a game at: Illinois and Minnesota. Illinois, like I'm fine with waiting. Like last year the pandemic was like, no, it's fine. You guys take another year off. You're not missing anything. Minnesota, though, I am looking forward to seeing that stadium. We get to make another trip to Nebraska, which is my absolute favorite Big Ten road city. So that I'm looking forward to those. But yeah, you mentioned it earlier. The thing that I'm really looking forward to this year, having Bert back in our lives, Bret Bielema. Like I am genuinely excited about. He's going to say something at Big Ten Media Days that's going to just tick everyone off. he's going to say something, he's going to just offend people. He's going to, his wife will tweet something stupid, whatever it is. Like, it's all the wonderful Bret Bielema stuff that you've just kind of, like, he's been out of our lives for so long. He left after 2011, 12. I mean, he left the Big Ten, he left to go coach Arkansas. I don't remember if the Braxton Miller Hail Mary game was the last year that he was at Wisconsin, or if it was one more year after that. But I think he was there one more year after that, because I think that was I think he was the coach when they hung 70 points on
through 12.
Yeah, through 12. So because he hung 70 points on Nebraska in that Big Ten championship game, and then I think he left after that, and then that was one of those Barry Alvarez interim Rose Bowls. I'm pretty sure that was how that went. So yeah, but I think people have forgotten how fun it is to have Bret Bielema in your life, and just the goofy stuff he'll say, the goofy stuff he'll do, how goofy he looks in pictures, like all of it. Like, everything is just wonderful. He is one of my favorite stupid college football things, and now he is much more directly in our lives. We get to see him at Big Ten Media Days in about a month. Like, I'm for it.
He was actually on my list as well, and I waited too long to mention him, so you got to steal him. He is, and I wrote about this, I don't know, like maybe the year after he left, about how the Big Ten needs a new Bret Bielema, or Bret Bielema needs to come back. Or at one point I wrote, Michigan needs to hire Bret Bielema so that you can get this villain back in the Big Ten. Because you had, like, I remember covering Big Ten Media Days where Bret Bielema would say something about Ohio State cheating in recruiting. Jim Tressel would, deny it or whatever. And then Barry Alvarez would have to apologize for what Bret Bielema said and how there's no truth there. It happened with Urban Meyer as well. And Barry Alvarez would have to apologize. And so it's just nice to have that guy around. It's better when he has, like, when he's in control of somewhat of a superpower, when he has an arsenal of a program like he did at Wisconsin. At Illinois, it's like he's this villain that comes in, but he's, what kind of firepower do you have? And he's like, well, I've got a donkey and I've got a stapler. And it's like, well, you're not really much of a villain. And so he's going to have to, I don't know, does that mean he has to talk more, or does he have to be quiet? He is not, he has been humbled, but he is not humble. So what are we going to get?
Sounds like he needs to start stapling donkeys to people, slow them down. I think that's my game plan there. With if that's what I have to work with, I think that's what your game plan is. Here's the thing: I don't know how long he's going to be at absolute dregs of the Big Ten, Illinois. I think you've got a decent possibility with the transfer portal. I think that they've been working the portal quite a bit to try and do what Greg Schiano did last year and up that talent kind of quickly. If they go from, I don't know what they were last year. I felt like 3-9, but obviously no one played 12 games. But they were terrible last year, whatever they were. If he gets them to a 5-win team this year, and then they're a 6 or 7-win team next year, like, I feel like it's not going to take that long for Bret Bielema. He's not going to win 11 games next year, but he's going to beat someone. He's going to ruin someone's day, and then he's going to say something really, really, really noteworthy, I guess is a good way to put it, in the post game. Just picture a couple of years ago when Illinois beat Wisconsin on that field goal, the walk-off field goal in overtime. Can you imagine what Bret Bielema's post-game press conference would have been like after a game like that? Like, I'm so excited. I'm so delighted to have him back in our lives.
I think weren't we listening to that game in the car?
We were in the car almost all the way back to Columbus. I don't remember what week that was or where we were coming from. We were almost back to our destination where we had parked. Yes.
We would have been like, we need to pull over so that we can watch this post-game press conference. We need to get somewhere because you can't miss it. And so I'm glad he's back. I hope he hasn't calmed down or toned down, because he is just the worst in terms of being that guy. He's okay being that guy. And so when Bret Bielema left, like, Jim Harbaugh came in and he was that guy for a little bit. But you can't be a super villain if you are getting, like, you lose every battle, and now you're no longer even, like, doing evil deeds. You've quit, you've given up. You're really just a sad villain. And there's nothing worse than a sad villain. And that's what Jim Harbaugh has become. So now you bring in this other villain who can maybe spice things up. I think that's going to be fun. So you've taken that. So for me, I have to come up with something on the fly. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm stealing one from you here, Tom, with James Franklin's random failures with coaching decisions at the wrong time, not calling timeouts when he should, or just so many good clock failings and timeout failings from him that we're going to see, or running the ball on 4th and 5. And it could be all of those things in one game. That's the fun thing. I'm looking forward to seeing James Franklin somehow lose a game, take the Penn State win probability from like 97 to a loss. And it's just one of the most exciting things in football. And it brings, you mentioned the NCAA, how everybody loves dunking on the NCAA, and it brings America together. There are a few things that bring America together on Twitter, like James Franklin screwing something up, and people are like, he's done it again. Why does he keep doing this? I didn't know he could do it again, but here he is. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what it'll be, which is most of the fun.
That's the only drama. Like, it's going to happen. The just drama is, what is the circumstance going to be, and how badly is this going to hurt them, and how crazy are Penn State fans going to go when he does it? That's the exciting part of there. Yeah, I think I've done my 5, so I think we're through my list. I have a couple extras if we want to go through them, but
sure,
yeah,
I'm done with my list. What do you got?
Yeah, I'm super interested to see if Indiana can stay at their 2020 level. Like, can Tom Allen keep that program where it was last year? Was that just a weird pandemic thing? Can Michael Penix stay healthy? I mean, you want to talk about game management last year, that Penn State Indiana game where Indiana did the let them score thing. Like, that was a perfect encapsulation of Tom Allen, just a very smart, heady coach, squeezing everything he can out of a team that probably does not have talent, equal to Penn State's, and that great Michael Penix dive at the pylon. Like, that just felt like they got everything they possibly squeezed, every possible juice they could out of that orange last year. But then their season kind of ended like weirdly, where they didn't get to play in the Big Ten championship game. They didn't get to play their bowl game. I mean, it just kind of ended flat. I'm interested to see, was that a weird one-off year as a result of the pandemic in particular? Or, can they beat Michigan again? Can they beat Penn State again? Can they assert themselves as the second best team in the Big Ten? Because if you can do that, and you can kind of recruit off of that, then that can become a little bit more sustainable at that point. But you got to do it again. You got to kind of like validate what you did the last time. You have to really show that this was not just a weird pandemic year fluke. I think they can do it. I think that's maybe the most interesting Big Ten road trip Ohio State makes this year, is that game at Indiana. So that's going to be intriguing to me as well.
They did lose the Outback Bowl 26-20 to Ole Miss to finish the season 6-2. That was without Michael Penix. That was Jack Tuttle starting the game.
I have no recollection of that game. I thought, maybe I'm thinking of Iowa didn't get to play their bowl game.
And Jack Tuttle led them to a win at Wisconsin as well. I mentioned this on another show. I don't know how healthy Michael Penix will stay, because he just can't stay healthy. Every spring at Indiana, he's been rehabbing an injury from the previous year, and that is the case again this year. And even when he's in, it's not like he's the most remarkable quarterback, but he moves the ball and they make things happen. If I give you Indiana or Michigan right now, who are you taking to finish third in the East? Because I'm leaning towards Indiana.
I think Indiana finishes ahead of Michigan for sure. I don't know that I think Indiana finishes third, and they might finish second, but more likely to finish higher than fourth in the East. I'd say for sure Indiana.
I would agree with that. What else you got?
I think I kind of touched on this, but I'm really looking forward to another Nebraska trip. Those are always fun.
I feel like we could talk about the Nebraska trip for an hour, because we've got things planned. Mark's going to be with us. There's just so much. There's going to be so much live streaming of that trip, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. And that's just it has been my favorite Big Ten road trip ever since we started going there. It's a really long drive, but we just do it as a drive. Like, you could theoretically fly it, but it's honestly not a terrible drive. And we've got some fun stuff planned for that trip this year. I think, frankly, we probably should just do a show sometime in July when we're, looking at favorite Big Ten road trips or favorite Big Ten stadiums to go to or whatever. Because I feel like I could go more than more than 5 minutes on all the stuff I really love about Nebraska. But yes, if you have the opportunity to go to Nebraska this year as a trip, like, do it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a bunch of Big Ten stadiums that are just kind of like, fine. The drive's fine. The campus is whatever. Like Nebraska, like, it is a fun trip. It's a fun city. It is a great stadium. It's a great atmosphere. The fans are great. Like I legitimately just look forward to that Nebraska trip every 2 years. And I'm really excited we get to make it again this year.
Yeah, and after the trip is done, it's like, yes, you're glad to be home, but you're sad that it's going to be another 2 years before you get to go again. And now, who knows when our next trip will be? I don't even know if we know yet. So it's always fun. And yeah, sure, it's a long drive, but we were in Omaha, checked out the baseball stadium there, of course, the Council Bluffs and Runza. I am a little upset. I didn't even finish my Runza. I didn't finish all of it. Which I feel like a little bit of a shame that I'm even sharing that with people now, but just a really fun trip. And the place is awesome. The fans are awesome. And it's similar to an Ohio State experience. Like this is college football. This is something you should do. If you're a college football fan, just experience it. I don't know if you're going to be able to get a ticket for it because it's always a sellout, and tickets are probably pretty pricey for that one. But if you get a chance, do it. And eventually, Tom, we're gonna have to do our Tale of the Tape with Michigan. That sounds like another July show where we'll see how. I'm actually looking forward to that. That is one of the Big Ten things I am looking forward to see how Michigan shakes out. Did you have any others, or are we?
Well, the only other thing I had, and again, I touched on this earlier, so I didn't do it as a separate thing, but Michigan State, Michigan, like, man, that game is going to be, you want to talk about a narrative shaping game. That's it. Because if Michigan comes out and thumps Michigan State, which it could, it's possible, because Michigan State, I don't think is going to be particularly good this year. That sets one very different tone for what, how things are going in that state, probably for recruiting. That sets Mel Tucker back a little bit. That gives Jim Harbaugh a big boost. That's one thing. If Michigan State beats Michigan, like, oh boy, like at that point, Jim Harbaugh is probably fired basically on the spot. Even if he, even if it's not official yet, it's probably he's as good as fired at that point. So yeah, that is, in terms of narrative shaping games, like outside of Michigan upsetting Ohio State this year, that is probably the single biggest narrative shaping game that I can think of in the Big Ten this year. And, we saw a not very good Michigan State team go in and just completely throttle Michigan with, Ricky White did nothing all year. And then he had like 296 yards receiving in that one game. Like, what, where did this guy come from? So yeah, that one is another one. I don't know what to expect, but I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
They may not let Jim Harbaugh back on the plane from East Lansing to Ann Arbor if there is a plane involved. When I think about that game, I think of like a demolition derby where it's just two cars and it's completely junk fest. And also the people driving the cars are tied to the grills, to the front ends, and they just keep smashing each other. And there's just gore everywhere. And it's like, I don't want to watch this, but I've never seen this before. And this is fascinating. And, then whoever walks away somehow won't be good. It's not like they're going to come out of there, contending for anything, but it's a whole lot better than losing that game. And so that one is going to be, I still can't believe it happened last year. That happening last year lets me know that anything is possible this year with Michigan and anybody. So I'm not putting anybody past, I'm not putting Western Michigan past beating them, because there's no way Michigan State should have been able to beat them last year. And that's knowing Michigan was not good, but Michigan State was terrible, like horrific. And yet it didn't matter because they just went into Michigan and yes, it was only a 3-point win, but it was like they beat them up pretty good. And that was, I don't want to say I'm looking forward to it because that makes me sound like sadistic, like you, but it is one of my favorite sports rivalries. I always say my three favorite sports rivalries are like Ohio State, Michigan, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Michigan, Michigan State. It's kind of dipped since Mark D'Antonio has left because maybe my ultimate favorite thing in sports was the Mark D'Antonio smile after Michigan win, where it's just a little smirk. And that was always fun. And so that's gone. So that's taken some of my luster. Maybe Michigan State starting out 2-0 against Michigan under their new head coach would be Mel Tucker would be maybe that would be like the new Mark D'Antonio smirk. Is just like, Jim, why can't you beat anybody? But like, why can't you beat Michigan State now? Like, D'Antonio's gone. What's the problem? And his answer would be, Tom,
I'll answer your questions, not your insults. I'm that is a rivalry that, at its best, which is probably really its worst, it is right up there with Ole Miss, Mississippi State, the Egg Bowl, for like really stupid, mutually assured destruction kind of in-state rivalries, where it's just like, there's a very certain way this could go, where it ticks off both fan bases so much that they both fire their coaches. That happened a couple of years ago, where both Ole Miss and Mississippi State fired their coaches after the game where the Ole Miss player pretended to be a dog and urinate in the back of the end zone and got a 15-yard personal foul penalty, which caused them to miss the ensuing extra point and therefore lose the game by 1. I mean, that is my favorite stupid college football rivalry of all time, because there is no dumber rivalry in sports than that. But man, Michigan State, when it is at its best, by which I mean it is at its worst, it can be right like there to there, like right below. And I am, if there's one thing I love, it is stupid college football things, and that is definitely quite possibly going to be an extremely stupid college football thing this year.
There are times in that series where it's like there's no reason for this to be happening, and I am watching it and I am clapping along, and it makes no sense. And of course, the 2015 punt block that cost Ohio State a playoff spot is still remarkable and unbelievable, and yet so believable that it happened in that game. Anything else, Tom, that you're looking forward to this year before we get out of here?
Just trying to decide if I can make my voice do exactly what Sean McDonough's did on the trouble with the snap. I don't know if I got that right. That's such a niche, specific thing, but
Can you do it in an Australian accent?
Has trouble with the snap. No, the answer is no. Apparently, I cannot. But I tried, and that's what's important.
Not Don Knotts, Australian.
No, I can't. Sorry. But thank you all for listening this far into the show to find out that I cannot do Australian Sean McDonough having his voice crack as a punt gets mishandled.
Oh, that was good. All right. I think that will then do it for this episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Remind you to check out everything at BuckeyeScoop.com. Check out all of the podcasts going on, dropping into your feeds constantly. Give them all a listen. And just thank you guys for supporting us. And we will talk to you later.